Welcome to Wildland Fire.
This is where you got to go to failure. When you try to test yourself out in the real world, when you're failing here, you will fail in real life.
This is the hardest job in the world.
People were watching each other die as they were passing their brother and sister.
Panic sets, chaos hits, and take charge and take care of the rest of the guys.
Overarching thing that we do here is try to bring order to chaos.
We'll do it live. Okay.
No.
We'll do it live. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. And things suck.
I agree with Bill. Freaking thing sucks. Sorry for the little snafu, guys. That's my fault for, I guess, my impersonation of Ian Corral just screwed everything, and Israel shut off my live stream. No, look. I've got detailed notes for these streams because it's really important that we're as accurate as possible as we do this. And for some reason, my notes just disappeared right when we went live. So I appreciate you guys sticking with me after that little hiccup. So we're going to get back to this. Now, as I said, a lot of this stuff is going to be a bit of redundancy for people who've been following along, not just with the Palisades Fire generally, but also with my streams. But I got some new information today because ever since I started posting publicly some of this inside information on the Palisades Fire, I've had more and more people reach out to me and send me videos and send me pictures and send me emails and information that paints a much more detailed picture of what went wrong, what caused the Palisades Fire. So we've all been fixated on what ignited the Palisades Fire. Was it arson? Was it power lines? Was it a rekindle? I don't think these are the right questions to ask. The real question to ask is, was it just one ignition? Were there multiple ignitions at different times? But maybe the ultimate question we need to ask, and after the info that I just received, are environmentalists responsible for the Palisades Fire? Did environmentalists just kill 12 people and destroy an entire city? Now, we've been dissecting this this bombshell lawsuit by the great Alexander Robertson. I know him as Trey. He's been representing the victims of the Palisades Fire and getting us answers on the fire that government has been dead silent on. So at this point, Trey and his investigators are basically the only reason that we have any daylight on what happened with the most expensive disaster in human history. But now, as people are sending me more stuff, I'm starting to realize that this is even worse than we thought. So to get started, we have this radio traffic from the initial attack where this was up in the Highlands, where the Palisades Fire originated, up near Skull Rock, okay? So let's listen to this radio traffic really quick. This is the first responding engine.
Truck 69, we're on Chastain. At Calle Victoria. These houses look okay. Do we have a new destination?
So now this is from 23s. This is one of the two engines that services the Palisades. They were first on scene with engine 69 up in the Highlands. And at first they point out, hey, these houses look okay. Do we have another assignment? So they're looking for another place where they can actually do work because the fire started right up there near the Highlands, but it ran off towards the ocean. So those homes were fine, except they burned down that night. A bunch of homes up in the Highlands, behind the heel of the fire, out of alignment, burned down. Why? Why did that area get rocked? Why did a bunch of homes burn down? Even though the fire had burned away from them towards the Pacific Ocean. Now, what does this look like? These are wooden power poles and downed power lines. Now, this is above the Highlands. You can see the reservoir. Now, this is too far north from the source of the original Palisades fire to be the original ignition, in my opinion. Now, when asked if these downed power lines were energized on the day of the fire, the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power told a reporter from the Washington Post on January 12th that those lines had been abandoned and de-energized for the past 5 years and were not energized at the time of the fire. The question is that true? Here we have what looks like a power pole fire. It's igniting in what to me looks like clear air around 3:36 p.m. down near PCH in front of the Malibu Village Mobile Home Park. There's no fire nearby. So this is either like a 1 in a million long-range spot fire that just happened to start right under this power pole, or those lines were still energized and they started a new fire. And apparently the entire mobile home area got nuked from this fire. This screenshot, taken from LADWP's Temescal Trailhead 1 surveillance camera. This is at night. It's around 10:34 p.m. Clearly shows that lights were still on in the homes located in the summit. That's up in the highlands in that area that we showed earlier on January 7th, while the fire raged below near the bottom of Palisades Drive. So now these homes are still intact and they have power. So this automatically calls into question LADWP's position and their claim that they had properly de-energized the lines in the Palisades. Here, we have more footage. On this Firewatch camera above the Palisades Highlands, near the origin of the fire, we see two things: wooden power poles and no fire activity on this side of the hill. Then, all of a sudden, we see what looks like a massive arcing event originating from the area of those wooden electrical poles, and this is key. After this is when the Highlands area gets rocked by fire, and people had to flee out of there. Now, an LADWP patrolman was ordered to de-energize Distribution Station 29 hours earlier at 1:40 p.m. on January 7th. LADWP records show that the patrolman did not arrive until 4 hours and 23 minutes later, and he was unable to manually de-energize the lines, and he had to flee the incoming fire, and the lines remained energized. It gets worse. Not only did they fail to de-energize those power lines, but they then altered the patrolman's entry log 3 weeks later to change the time of his arrival at the substation, winding back the clock nearly 4.5 hours to make it look as though they had promptly arrived when the request was made and not 4.5 hours later. Despite all of this, the LADWP claimed that they had de-energized their lines at the time of the Palisades fire. As if we didn't already have enough proof, there's more. This coming from the Community Fire Brigade, I believe SkySource. Here you can see footage of them valiantly trying to save homes, and it is a losing battle. Look at all these power explosions. You guys see that? Let's watch it again. Boom. Sparks shooting off that transformer. This is 5:49 p.m. Now at 7:30 p.m., multiple explosions coming off this power pole. Obviously, these lines are energized. Obviously. And you can see in their captions on this video, look, energized power lines arc in the wind. We try to hold the fires at the back of the properties. We're increasingly concerned of live power lines. I wonder why. It's because there are live power lines and they're exploding everywhere. So not only does this have the potential of creating spot fires, but it also endangers crews and it chases fire crews out of the area. We remember this Instagram post showing one of the camp crews. So here we have more evidence showing the LADWP, they're arcing power lines, they're interfering with firefighters' efforts to suppress the fire. And in this picture, we can see a camp crew had to pull off of the fire line due to arcing power lines above their heads, leaving this piece of the fire unsecured. Now, who knows what happened after that? Now, let's look at these power poles. You might wonder, why do you have wooden power poles in fire country? Now, these wood power poles were installed between 1935 and 1955. So not only were they well past their useful service life, wood poles are obviously extremely vulnerable to burning in a wildfire. Now, LADWP actually initiated a project to replace these old wooden poles with safer, more durable steel poles back in 2019. So back in 2019, they were going to replace these fire magnets that are holding up critical infrastructure that makes not only the fire worse, but the firefight impossible. They started this work in 2019. They stopped this work in 2019, and they never replaced these wooden power poles. Why? You will never guess why. Because of this plant. This is why they never replaced those power poles. They bulldozed some endangered Bronton's milk vetch plants. This is the Bronton's milk vetch plant. When they were trying to replace those poles, they ran over some of these plants. Environmentalists got mad. Work stopped. They never replaced the wood poles. And many of those poles then burned down and snapped in half during the Palisades Fire. And all of the milk vetch plants burned up. This is such a typical California environmental policy. Like Tim was talking about this in the Hot Shot Wake Up. There's all of these friends of NGOs that will fight tooth and nail to protect one tree or one little cluster of plants. And then a prescribed fire gets blocked, or power poles don't get replaced like this over the Palisades. And then there's a fire that destroys all of the plants in a 10-mile radius and turns it to moon dust. So it's like they literally can't see the forest for the trees. But it gets worse. It gets worse. Remember this? We have talked about the multiple city-owned lots around the Palisades. Here in the Castellamare area, a local resident was hounding the Los Angeles Fire Department about this one particular city-owned lot near their home that had overgrown dry brush all over it, creating fire hazard for their entire neighborhood. So let's take a look at this government-owned parcel. Let's go into Google Maps. Here's the Castellamare neighborhood. This is government property here on the left with brush all over it. Now, this is back in 2023. It's not cleared. So basically, it's just a can of gasoline sitting here waiting to catch fire in the middle of all these homes. So how did this area fare? Nuked. It got nuked. It got nuked really bad. So this government-owned property that was basically laid fallow ended up catching fire. And we actually have some images of it from a security camera. Here's that property that we just showed. You can see that it's full of brush. Here's a little spot fire forming. Now, that lawsuit alleges that embers from the Palisades Fire landed in the overgrown brush on the city's vacant lot and started this spot fire, which spread to an adjacent city-owned lot and to the vacant and abandoned house owned by the city. So here you can see on the security camera footage that spot fire, it's starting on city property in the Castellamare area. Here it's getting worse. And here it is spreading throughout the neighborhood. Now, we have some new information on this, and it is this is the most damning thing that I've seen so far. In writing from a city official. Now, according to a city official involved in the legally required fire hazard brush clearance in the Palisades, they say, quote, "The city-owned properties are owned by General Services. General Services is supposed to be clearing their own properties, but they don't clear a lot of them, so we end up clearing them." Now, they then mention one of their office staff who was previously dealing with this property, quote, "was just let go as well due to budget cuts." They continue. Some other info that you might be interested in is that there is a lot of state-owned land surrounding you that never gets cleared. Did you hear that? There is a lot of state-owned land surrounding you that never gets cleared. Never. The state says it's the homeowner's responsibility to clear state land, and that the homeowner has to apply for and pay for a permit to clear their land. And I can't cite a homeowner to clear property that isn't theirs. So this land never gets cleared. Did you hear that? The state won't clear the land that surrounds private property. And so if that state land is overgrown and it is now a fire hazard threatening your home, you have to file a permit to then clear that state-owned land. But the problem is the Los Angeles Fire Department Brush Clearance Unit cannot cite you for not clearing land that does not belong to you. Do you see this little shell game that's happening with bureaucracy? Do you see this? So the homeowner has to clear state land because the state won't clear it. But the LA Fire Department can't hold that homeowner responsible because it's state land. It's not their land. So then nobody takes responsibility and it never gets cleared. He continues in writing. Last fall, we had a lot of complaints on state property on Los Leones and Paseo Miramar, which is near you. And for the first time ever, we spent city funds to clear a lot of this state land. This spring, we again cleared the state land on Los Leones, and then the California state parks had concerns about how much clearing our contractors were doing. They didn't want us to touch certain protected native trees and bushes, and didn't want us to clear within 50 feet of birds' nests. Did you hear that? California State Parks, that's Gavin Newsom's agency, was precluding them from clearing land of fire hazards because there were certain plants that they didn't want touched. They also couldn't get within 50 feet of birds' nests. He goes on. So when we cleared the state property on Paseo Miramar, we were limited by the state of California, Gavin Newsom, on what we were allowed to clear. And it doesn't look anywhere near as clear as the state land on Los Leones does. So you have California state parks harassing the Los Angeles Fire Department and preventing them from clearing brush because of birds' nests. Environmental policy that is precluding everybody, homeowners and the Los Angeles Fire Department, hamstringing them from getting rid of hazardous brush that then went on to catch fire in the middle of the Palisades Fire and nuke an entire neighborhood. Of course, all of those native plants and the birds' nests were all destroyed by the fire. So again, it's like the same record repeating itself. You have these policies that are ostensibly to protect the wildlands, and then they end up just destroying everything. They end up destroying everything, all because of these misguided environmental policies. This is the Migratory Bird Treaty, 1916, between the US and Canada. That's why they're not supposed to get near birds' nests. So you can thank Canada. Thanks, Canada. So just in this one area around Topanga State Park, which is Gavin Newsom's property, you have LADWP attempting to fireproof their power lines, and then their work on California state property is stopped due to environmentalist concerns over Broughton's milk vetch plants, which ultimately, again, they just got nuked to oblivion in the ensuing wildfire. And then deeper into the Palisades residential neighborhood, you have California state parks precluding the Los Angeles Fire Department from adequately clearing hazardous flammable brush from government-owned properties because of birds' nests. So out of bureaucratic fears over milk vetch plant and birds' nest, the Palisades gets nuked, including all of the plants and the birds' nest that they were trying to save. And a dozen people get killed. And thousands will be permanently displaced from this city that we all loved. And Gavin Newsom's California is like, dude, this is like a Kafkaesque bureaucratic nightmare. This fire was not a natural disaster. This was a bureaucratic fire, 100%. the state needs to pay. The fire started on state property, started on Gavin Newsom's overgrown property. They kneecapped the LAFD Brush Clearance Division. They blocked the LADWP from replacing vulnerable power poles with steel ones. When is there going to be accountability? Like, there needs to be a reckoning for this state and for its derelict governor. Because, look, it was already sickening watching him do like press hits in the middle of the conflagration. People are actively burning to death right behind him. It's even worse now knowing that it was his derelict stewardship over the state. All of this state property that's now like engulfing the Palisades. Now my family's homes are gone, and the neighborhood that we grew up in will never be the same. All because he couldn't clear his brush. And now this same derelict governor is now allocating over $100 million to push out the Palisades residents in favor of high-density transient housing. Now, they'll call it low-income housing, but it's high-density housing. Bigger bang for their buck. You already see the vultures picking at the carcass. The developer who inherited the Shell gas station in the Palisades that burned down, he's going to replace it with a 100-unit apartment complex. 100 units in the footprint of a gas station. So that way they can make exponentially more money with this property. Dude, the buzzards, they're already swooping in, and they're already plucking the Palisade carcass clean before it's even been cleaned up. They'll call it affordable housing, but it's not going to be affordable. It's high density housing. It's more bang for their buck. It's more traffic. That means less character for the Palisades, and the spirit of the Palisades is going to be erased. And honestly, it's like this lawsuit right now is the only thing standing in the way. So you have state bureaucrats precluding the clearance of brush. They can't even follow their own state law because of bird's nests and milk vetch plants, because of environmentalist concerns. And then all of those things that they were trying to protect got destroyed. Even worse than if they had just, if they just destroyed a few milk vetch plants to replace those power poles, maybe that ignition above the highlands doesn't occur and that fire doesn't continue up towards Topanga. Again, it's like, dude, this state cannot see the forest for the trees. This is unbelievable. And the fact that you have city officials admitting that the state does not clear their land and that they put the onus on the adjacent homeowners who then have to get a permit to clear on state lands, this is unbelievable. The fact that nobody is raising this question drives me absolutely insane. The state has let down the Palisades. The fire started on state property. It burned through with all these spot fires, all this derelict state-governed property that was totally overgrown. And according to an official at the Los Angeles Fire Department, there is a lot of state-owned land surrounding you that never gets cleared. Never. Never. The last time there was a purging wildfire in this area was in the 70s. So if it's never getting cleared, do you know how volatile that makes it? There is state-owned property surrounding the Palisades that never gets cleared. So what do we do with that? Who do we hold accountable? Are they ever going to get asked the hard questions? Anyway, man, I'm curious what you guys think. To see this admission from a city official that these state lands are never cleared, and the reason is because of environmentalists. I'm an environmentalist, but I got to tell you, man, I'll sacrifice a couple birds' nests to still have the Palisades. Anyway, that's the new information. Appreciate you guys for joining me. Spread the word. This is far from over, man, but someone's got to pay.